I know people like to say you shouldn't take work personally, but I need you to understand something before I tell you what happened. This project wasn't just work for me. It was 3 months of staying late while everyone else went home. 3 months of covering tasks my boss forgot to assign. 3 months of being the guy who held the whole thing together while pretending I didn't notice the cracks. So when I tell you I wasn't invited to the meeting, my meeting, I need you to hear it the way I felt it. Not as an oversight, not as bad scheduling. No. It was the moment I realized I'd been carrying people who didn't even know I had arms. That morning started out like any other. Too early coffee, inbox full of quick questions, and the kind of quiet you get only before an office wakes up. Our investor presentation was at 11. I'd spent the last week perfecting every slide, every data pull, every projection. I knew the numbers so well I could explain them backward. I was actually excited. It felt like the first time in years I'd get to present something that mattered. Something I built. At 10:20 I checked my calendar again. Nothing. No invite. I refreshed. Still nothing. I thought maybe I'd been added verbally, or the meeting was in another thread, or maybe IT was glitching again. Small, harmless explanations. Logical ones. At 10:27, my boss, Alex, walked past my desk with a coffee he didn't offer to anyone else. He was in his usual mood, the kind where he acts 5 inches taller because someone above him sent a great job team email the night before. "Hey," I called after him. "Did the meeting link change?" I didn't get anything. He stopped, turned, and blinked at me like he just noticed I worked there. "What meeting?" "The investor presentation," I said, lifting the folder I'd printed. "The one for the rollout metrics. My project, my work, my slides." "Oh," he finally said. "Right. That." Then he shrugged. Actually shrugged, like the whole thing was a loose button on his shirt. "They only needed department heads. Didn't think we had to loop you in. You're overreacting. It's just a meeting." Just a meeting. I stood there, folder still in my hand, while he walked away like he'd just given me a parking update. Something tightened in my chest. Not anger, not hurt. Something colder. The kind of cold that makes your breathing slow down so you don't crack anything. At 10:40, I checked the main conference room. Through the glass, I could see people gathering. Laptops open, my slides glowing on the main screen. My charts, my forecasts, my words. Alex was already inside, shaking hands, positioning himself like he'd been architecting the project since birth. I don't know how long I stood there with my hand on the doorframe, watching them without seeing them. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't hurt yet. I was confused, maybe. Like my brain was trying to rearrange the situation into something that made sense. I went back to my desk, sat down, closed my laptop because I couldn't stand to see the screen reflecting the room behind me. At 11:08, one of my colleagues, Maya, messaged me privately. "Did you step out? They're presenting your deck." I stared at the message, read it again, then typed back, "I wasn't invited." She responded immediately. "What? Why?" I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? That my boss had decided, without telling me, that I wasn't relevant enough to attend my own project's presentation? At 11:25, I walked to the small break room just to breathe somewhere no one could see me unraveling. Because I was unraveling, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a thread coming loose under the fabric of everything I'd been holding together. While I stood there, listening to the hum of the old refrigerator, I heard the conference room door open down the hall. Voices, laughter, chairs scraping. The meeting was over. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe Alex coming to explain or apologize or pretend it was an accident. Instead, he walked straight past the break room, phone in hand, smiling like he'd just nailed something brilliant. All I could think was, he doesn't even realize what he just took from me. That afternoon, the office buzzed with the post-meeting excitement, people congratulating each other, replaying questions, discussing next steps. No one asked me anything. No one even looked my way long enough to remember I existed. At 5:12, when most people had already started packing up, Alex finally approached my desk. "Good work on the deck," he said, tapping his knuckle on my monitor like it was a dog he was patting. "They liked it." I stared at him. "They liked my deck," I corrected. He exhaled like I was exhausting him. "Dude, relax. You're taking this way too personally. It's done. Let's move on." But I didn't move on. Not from that moment. Not from that sentence. Not from the realization that he would take credit for my work and act like I should thank him for it. I closed my laptop slowly, deliberately, and said, "Sure, let's move on." But inside, something else shifted. Something I had ignored for months. Something quiet but sharp. And that was the moment, I didn't know it yet, that this story really began. The next morning, the office felt different. Not louder, not busier, just off. Like everyone knew something I didn't. People weren't avoiding me exactly, but they were watching me the way you watch a glass perched too close to an edge. Careful, curious, waiting to see if it would fall. I logged in, opened my laptop, and saw the email thread from the investors team. Attached, the deck. My deck. Edited. Most of the edits were shallow, color adjustments, formatting tweaks. But there was one thing that caught my eye. A slide added at the end titled Key Contributors. 3 names, none of them mine. I stared at the screen long enough for the cursor to fade out. My name wasn't missing because someone forgot. Someone had erased it. At 9:14, Maya appeared beside my desk with a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered. "Sure. Is everything okay between you and Alex?" Her voice was low, cautious, like she was asking about a family argument she'd overheard through a wall. "Why?" She glanced around before leaning in. "Because during the meeting, every time someone asked about projections, he answered like he built the entire thing himself. He didn't mention you once. Not once." She swallowed. "And people noticed." "Whose people?" "Everyone who isn't blind." I wanted to brush it off, pretend it wasn't a big deal, but the weight in her voice made it impossible. "Thanks," I said quietly. She squeezed my shoulder, something she'd never done in 2 years of working together, and walked away. By noon, the whispers had settled into a kind of muted rhythm. Conversations hushed when I walked by. People exchanged looks. A few coworkers avoided meeting my eyes entirely, not because they blamed me, but because they knew exactly what had happened. At 1:03, I finally confronted Alex. He was eating lunch at his desk, scrolling on his phone while picking at a salad he clearly didn't like. "Got a minute?" I asked. "Sure," he said without looking up. "Why wasn't my name on the final slide?" He blinked once, annoyed to be interrupted. "It wasn't intentional. It just didn't fit on the slide. 3 names fit. Mine didn't." He set his fork down with a sigh. "Look, it's not that deep. Investors don't care about who did what. They care about results, and you're getting worked up over nothing again." Again? That word landed like a slap. "I'm asking a simple question," I said. "Why am I being cut out of my own work?" "You're not being cut out," he said. "You're being sensitive. This is why I didn't want you in the meeting. You get tense under pressure." I felt something shift in my stomach. It wasn't anger. Anger is loud. This was quiet, controlled. "Is that what you told them?" I asked. He gave a small, dismissive shrug. "I said you get perfectionistic sometimes. It's fine." It made the room calmer. Calmer. So now I was a liability. I walked back to my desk and opened a blank document. I didn't name it anything. I just started typing. Dates. Tasks assigned verbally. Hours logged. Slack messages. Email threads. File versions showing my authorship. Instances where credit was reassigned. Not accusations. Facts. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't planning anything yet. I just wanted the truth written down somewhere other than my head, because I suddenly realized how easy it was for someone else to rewrite it. At 3:47, the head of our division stopped by my desk. a man I'd spoken to maybe 10 times in 3 years. "Good work yesterday," he said, tapping the edge of my monitor. "Thanks," I replied, surprised. He looked around, then lowered his voice. "You should have been in that meeting." It hit harder than I expected, not because he said it, but because he meant it. Before I could respond, he added, "I'll touch base with Alex about it." I didn't want him to. I didn't trust what Alex would turn that into. "Please don't," I said. "Not yet." He gave me a long, searching look, then nodded once. "Your call." By the end of the day, the office felt like a pressure cooker, and not because of me, because of the quiet, collective realization that something unfair had happened, and everyone was waiting to see what I'd do. As I packed my bag to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from Alex. "Let's touch base tomorrow. Need to align on tone for next steps." Tone. Suddenly, everything was clear. He didn't want to fix anything. He wanted control of the narrative. I put the phone in my pocket and left it unanswered. That night, for the first time in months, I didn't think about work while making dinner. I didn't replay conversations. I didn't imagine defenses or compromises or second chances. I was calm in a way I hadn't been in years, because something inside me finally clicked into place. For months, I'd been saving people who never wanted saving. People who didn't see the difference between carrying someone and being used. And now, I wasn't carrying anyone anymore. That was just the beginning. The next week didn't explode all at once. It cracked slowly, like ice under weight. Quiet, almost graceful, right until the moment it gives way. On Monday, I showed up early, partly because I wanted silence, partly because I needed to see something for myself. I opened the shared drive and scrolled to the folder for our project. 7 new versions, none of them mine. Every file had been overwritten over the weekend. My notes, my models, my calculations, all replaced with watered-down summaries that looked like they'd been thrown together at midnight by someone who wanted to seem busy without doing the work. At 8:42, the email landed. Investors are requesting revisions ASAP. They want updated metrics and clearer forecasting. Need deliverables by Thursday latest. I read it twice, then a third time. Of course they did, because the presentation Alex gave without me wasn't built for investors. It was built to make him look polished. At 9 sharp, he strutted into the office with a confidence that didn't match the panic in his inbox. He called an emergency meeting within 15 minutes. Nobody wanted to be there. You could see it in the slouched shoulders, the tight jaws, the eyes that stayed glued to laptops. "All right," Alex said, clapping his hands once. "We've got a bit of cleanup to do, but nothing major." Nothing major. The room was dead silent. He clicked his remote, and the disaster appeared on the screen. His version of our deck, with investor comments peppered across every slide. Some were polite, some were not. One note said, "These projections don't match the previous data. Please clarify methodology." Another, "We were told the project lead would present. Why was that not the case?" That one landed like a grenade. I didn't react, didn't blink, didn't move. I just sat there while half the team slowly turned their heads in my direction, then quickly looked away like they weren't supposed to. Alex cleared his throat. "Okay, so we'll need updated numbers ASAP. I've already laid the groundwork, so it shouldn't take long." He hadn't laid anything. He'd bulldozed everything. "Who's rebuilding the forecast?" someone finally asked. Alex hesitated. "I'll supervise. I just need someone to execute the technical pieces." Everyone knew what that meant. Everyone also knew nobody else could do it. Not correctly, not in time. He looked at me then, a long, tight-lipped stare. "Can you jump in?" he asked. Jump in. Like the ship sinking beneath him was a puddle I created. I tapped my pen once against the table. "What exactly do you need from me?" I asked. "Just the heavy lifting," he said. "I'll handle presentation flow." "The heavy lifting," I repeated, making sure he heard how absurd that sounded. "Yes," he said, missing the point entirely. "Just get the models fixed and we'll take it from there." "We?" I asked. He blinked. Yeah, we, the department. He gestured around the room like he expected applause. It was almost impressive, the level of denial required to stand in front of a team and pretend the person you erased yesterday should save you today. I didn't raise my voice, didn't posture, didn't make a scene. I'm not doing it, I said. The room didn't gasp. It froze. The kind of freeze where people stop shifting in their chairs and just listen. Alex laughed once, a confused, brittle sound. Sorry, what? I'm not rebuilding something you broke to make yourself look good. His face darkened. This isn't about me. This is about the company. Investors needed accuracy, I interrupted. You removed that. His jaw tensed. You're being emotional. No, I said. I'm being factual. He stared at me like he couldn't comprehend what was happening, like someone had swapped me with a stranger who didn't know the script. You don't get to refuse, he said. This is your job. No, I said calmly. My job was done. You replaced it. Something shifted in the room. People exchanged glances, subtle, dangerous glances. A few nodded, barely perceptible, but I saw. Everyone saw. Chaos has a sound. Silence heavy enough that you can feel it pressing on your ribs. We ended the meeting early. Within an hour, Alex tried calling me into a one-on-one. I declined. He emailed. I replied with a formal note asking him to keep all project-related communication in writing. He didn't like that. By Tuesday, the cracks widened into fractures. Investor Relations pinged our department lead directly, asking for an update. The division head came down in person, something he never did, and the expression on his face said he already knew the answer. Where's the updated forecast? He asked. Alex launched into a speech about team bandwidth and unforeseen resource constraints. The director cut him off. Why wasn't the project lead involved in the initial presentation? Alex stuttered. Well, I didn't think it was necessary at the time. The director looked at him, then looked at me. Is that true? He asked. I didn't embellish, didn't dramatize, didn't go for the kill. Yes, I said simply. The director nodded once, the kind of nod that ends careers. That afternoon, a formal request was sent from corporate audit for documentation on the project workflow, ownership, and communication chain. Alex called it routine. It wasn't. By Wednesday, the quiet chaos turned into something sharper. People moved around the office carefully, watching, listening, sensing that the ground underneath us was shifting. And I felt something strange. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just stillness. Because consequences don't shout. They arrive quietly, like a door closing somewhere behind you. On Thursday morning, I got an email from the Internal Review Committee. They wanted documentation from me, timeline, deliverables, version logs, correspondence, everything I had been collecting. I attached the files, wrote a neutral summary, and pressed send. 5 minutes later, Investor Relations emailed a second time. Please confirm who will be presenting revisions. Alex didn't respond. Nobody responded. For a moment, the entire floor felt like it was holding its breath. And then, silence. The kind that means something's gone wrong. Friday morning didn't begin with drama. No shouting, no meetings, no frantic emails. It started with an automated calendar notification. Internal Review Committee. Follow-up 9:30 a.m. I arrived 10 minutes early. The conference room was half lit, blinds tilted, the kind of setup that looked accidental, but wasn't. Audit rooms always feel like someone rehearsed the tension beforehand. 2 people from compliance sat on one side of the table, laptops open. Our division head sat at the end. An empty chair waited beside him. For Alex. He arrived late. Of course he did. He walked in with the flustered energy of someone who'd been up all night preparing explanations that sounded good only in the mirror. All right, he said, exhaling loudly as he took a seat. Let's clear this up quickly. He had no idea how little control he had left. The committee began with simple questions. Documentation. Process flow. task ownership. Every answer he tried to spin was followed by a calmly delivered correction from compliance. Actually, based on the timestamps, according to the version logs, email records show he wilted visibly with each one. Then they opened my submission, the timeline, the workload history, the project versions, side-by-side comparisons showing his edits replacing core work. And finally, the meeting invite list, my name, conspicuously absent. No commentary, just facts. Facts don't argue. They don't raise their voices. They just sit in the room, like a weight. At one point, Alex rubbed his forehead with both hands and muttered, "I didn't think he needed to be there. He didn't say my name. He couldn't." The division head leaned forward, voice low, steady. "You removed the project lead from an investor presentation, presented his work as your own, edited it without oversight, and then failed to deliver revisions. You also misled leadership about resource allocation." The pause afterward felt like gravity thickened. "This isn't a coaching conversation," he finished. No one needed to explain what that meant. By 11, the meeting was over. Compliance thanked me for my thorough documentation. The division head asked me to stay behind for a moment. Alex was asked to leave. He didn't look at me as he walked out. He looked at the floor, eyes darting as if searching for a trap door he could fall through. The door clicked shut. The division head folded his hands. "You've done exceptional work," he said. "Not just on the project, on handling this professionally. You've been underutilized and, frankly, underrepresented." I waited. I didn't trust praise, not after months of pretending everything was stable. "We're restructuring the department," he continued. "Effective next week, Alex will be removed from his role. HR will finalize the process. Removed, not suspended, not warned. Removed. And you," he added, sliding a printed outline toward me, "we want you leading the rebuild. New team, new reporting line, title change, higher band, more autonomy, compensation to match." I didn't smile, didn't celebrate, didn't pump my fist under the table. Something in me had burned out weeks ago, but in a way that cleared space, not destroyed it. "I'll take it," I said simply. He nodded. "Good." When I left the room, the office felt lighter, not triumphant, just honest. People glanced at me differently, not with pity or awkward sympathy, with recognition. Around 1:15, as I grabbed a coffee from the break room, Maya approached. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I am." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. "I'm glad." I believed her. That afternoon, Alex's door stayed shut. HR visited twice. No one gossiped loudly. The tone of the floor had shifted from curiosity to something more respectful. Quiet, almost solemn. By 4, he was escorted out with a cardboard box. He didn't look at anyone. Nobody cheered. Nobody whispered. It wasn't vengeance. It was gravity doing its job. When the elevator doors closed behind him, the office didn't erupt into relief. It just exhaled. A long, overdue exhale. I sat at my new desk, temporary until the transition, and opened my laptop. For the first time in months, the screen felt like it belonged to me. At 5:06, I packed my things and left without rushing. Outside, the air smelled like the tail end of summer. Warm, clean, uncomplicated. I walked to my car with the slow confidence of someone who no longer needed to race against his own exhaustion. Driving home, I didn't replay the meeting, didn't imagine revenge, didn't savor Alex's downfall. I thought about the new team, the new start, the work I was finally allowed to do without someone standing in front of it. When I pulled into my driveway, the sun was low, soft, ordinary in the best way. I unlocked my front door, my space, my quiet, my life, and set my bag down. No bitterness, no weight, just peace. A clean, steady kind of peace that doesn't announce itself. The kind that comes when you stop carrying people who were never lifting anything with you. For the first time in a long time, I stood in my own kitchen and felt something simple. I belonged exactly where I was, and that was enough.